Hey, it's MJ from the Coaches Panel. I hope you're well, and the first player movement for the free agency period of 2023 has gotten underway. Departing Melbourne, heading through to Sydney, is James Jordon. The premiership player from the Demons is now a Sydney Swan. He played 17 games last year and pretty much played every other game the 2 seasons prior to that, but really did find himself a little out of favour in the starting 22 as the rest of this season went on for Melbourne, and understandably has found a way to change clubs. So what does it mean for the Swans? What does it mean for the Demons? And ultimately, what does it mean from a fantasy footy perspective in SuperCoach and also for AFL Fantasy? Let's talk about what it means for the Ds. For the Ds, it just means some of their depth has been depleted a little bit. While he's shown some great signs, both outside on the wing and also some moments through the middle at centre bounce, he's never really found himself, at least this year, established, firmly entrenched. They've got a really incredible midfield group led by Oliver, Viney, Petrarca. It's a hard midfield group to break into, so understandable to see James want to move on from the club. So Melbourne, I think it just adds to a little bit of a weaker depth, not so much anything really drastic in terms of their best potential midfield lineup. From a Swans perspective, it's an interesting mix for me. They've got Mills, who we know is going to miss potentially big chunks of 2024. Parker, Rowbottom, Goulden has found his chance and moved through there. So I think for James Jordon, the opportunity has got to have been, there's a spot for you, but it's yours to lose rather than yours to keep. So I think he might see a little bit of some inside midfield and then some opportunities through the flanks. Maybe we'll get some wing time as well, especially if they want to see Errol Goulden move through to that midfield unit a little bit even more as a centre bounce specialist, not just as an outside player. I'm not loving the move for James Jordon. I think there are other clubs he could have gone to that, from a fantasy perspective, which is ultimately what we're looking at today, from a fantasy perspective, he could have given us a little bit more, but I think he's going to certainly be in and around the mark of their best 22 and should see plenty of game time. From a fantasy perspective, he's not coming in at a discounted price point. While he's got some history of showing some decent 120s and even I think a 130 in SuperCoach in his career, this year, despite the 17 odd games, no tons across the formats. So for me, he's not going to be priced at a point in Classic where he's going to be value. I also don't see him surpassing a bunch of the other great Sydney Swans midfielders. I haven't even mentioned Chad Warner yet, by the way. So I just don't see enough ball going around between Warner, Parker, Mills, Goulden, Rowbottom to see Jordon to really pop for us as Classic owners to seriously consider James Jordon. Draft, different story. We know with drafts, it's always about the depth of draft in terms of how many players you need to draft, and then the amount of people that you're coaching against. That ultimately determines someone. But prior to this year, he's had a back-to-back seasons of pretty much in the 70s across the formats. Depending on the depth of your draft, he might be a relevant late round pickup, but probably I think he's going to be destined for a lot of waiver wires. So a nice move for the Swans. I think it adds some depth. It adds some nice in and outside mix into that midfield. But from a fantasy perspective, I can't see James Jordon being anybody we'll be super keen on in 2024. If you love this video, we're going to be doing reviews for every player that moves in the off-season as free agents and also as trades. So subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications so that as soon as the video drops, you'll be notified and able to get my thoughts on the players moving in the preseason. Our Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and everywhere else you get your podcast, there'll be a big wrap-up podcast at the end of the period. And our Patreons are getting exclusive content all year round. If you love the Coaches Panel, you're loving these videos, the podcast, everything we do, for just a few dollars a month, you can support the Coaches Panel and get some exclusive content. Make sure you check out further videos on this channel reviewing the trade period. But until then, enjoy your day, and I'll chat to you soon.